Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video here on Peg City Hockey, and today I just want to let you guys know, before we get into this video, complete disclaimer that this is just completely hypothetical. There are absolutely no rumors, no news, no nothing being pointed in the direction that this is even a realm of the possibility happening between these two clubs, so just get that out of the way. This is just completely a fan talking about how he would like his team to make an offer. There's no, truth to this. It's just me as a fan making this, statement. That's all it is, nothing more. So with all that being said, let's jump into the video. So, the idea of possibly having a trade between the Winnipeg Jets and the Buffalo Sabres interests me a ton, because there are a lot of teams being thrown around in the mix right now for being interested in getting him. Right now, Chicago is entering their name into the draw as well. There just seems to be almost everyone in the NHL is going to be wanting to take a swing at least at this guy potentially. And I think that the Jets, after the season they've had, after the roster that they have currently with Pierre-Luc Dubois, everything that's happened this season, and all my gripes with the current roster and their players and the leadership, everything going on with that team, I think the Jets could potentially make a offer to the Buffalo Sabres that could be actually very interesting. And I think the basis of the Jets trade, their best player that they would include would be a player who is the exact same age as Jack Eichel and is pretty similar in stats, even though, very completely different players. And the players that I'm talking about are Kyle Connor being swapped with a bunch of other pieces as well being attached to that we'll get onto later for Jack Eichel. And I think that this kind of makes sense for both clubs, and we'll get into why I think it does. But just basing it off of these two players alone, looking at their basis stats, just their scoring stats, that's it. Nothing advanced, just going off of the bare bones here, ladies and gentlemen. Kyle Connor in the last 3 seasons has played 209 games. In those 209 games played, he has scored 98 goals, 91 assists for 189 points. 189 points in 209 games is pretty damn good. I will be happy with that. Not to mention the guy's 24 years old, currently after just signing a big contract with the Winnipeg Jets at 7.142 for the next very long time, going up until 2025, 2026. Very interesting because, ironically, their contracts are also similar, which we'll talk about. But when you look over at Jack Eichel, a center who's also 24 years old, and Kyle Connor, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is not a center. He is a right winger. Apologies for that. Point being, Jack Eichel, $10 million up until 2025, 2026 as well, where he would be a UFA just like Kyle Connor will. And over the last 3 seasons for Jack Eichel, very interesting, even with some injury campaigns going through those 3 years, in 166 games, he's been able to play 66 goals, 112 assists for 180 points. Only 9 shy of Kyle Connor, what he was able to do in 209. So a pretty damn good player out there in Buffalo, and I think he is just a quiet gem in this league who is, once he gets on a new team, he's going to be just really appreciated for how good he is. And Buffalo fans, you already know how good he is. And I think the important difference to mark between these guys before we get any further, because obviously Jack Eichel is a completely different player. For one, he's a center, and a center is extremely more valuable than a scoring right winger. I don't care what you say, centers are what really make the difference in the playoffs. You need to have guys that can play that center position well, and that it can be good at two-way at times. Even if they're not the best defensively, at least they put the effort in, they try. And honestly, if you have a scoring center as well, that is amazing. Look what the Leafs have with Matthews and what he's able to do in the regular season. Not talking about the playoffs right here, but point being, at least they're able to make the playoffs because of how good that team is around Matthews and how good he is scoring those goals from a center. So Jack Eichel is a very good center there as well, and able to score a ton of goals as well. Kyle Connor currently makes just shy less of $3 million than Jack Eichel. Now, that's not bad when you think about Buffalo. They're shedding money, but they're also getting a guy who's pretty damn good. And if you're Winnipeg, $3 million with all the cap you have coming up, just based off Stastny and Perreault's expiring contracts, minus the fact that you're going to have to give raises to Neil Pionk, and you're also going to have to potentially sign Pierre-Luc Dubois to a contract increase, even from his $5 million, depending on how everything goes next year with him after he's done this next contract. So that's a lot of money that you potentially have to move around. Now, I do think the Jets are going to be big spenders or big ticket guys this offseason in some way. They're going to be going out to spend a lot of money, I feel like, or at least a good amount of it. So I don't think that $3 million, being added more on to a center, I think that makes a lot of sense for this team. I think it's completely within their cap management, but I think it's still an important difference between these guys to point out, is that Kyle Connor does make almost $3 million less than Jack Eichel. And also, the next big thing about this is that if you're the Winnipeg Jets, you most likely have to give up potentially a Cole Perfetti or a lot of other prospects that are going to make up for the lack of Cole Perfetti, if you know what I mean. Guys like Vesalainen, even Sami Niemi, Nikiu, who would be a throw-in, things like that. There's going to be a lot of big prospect names potentially being thrown around, because although Kyle Connor is a good player and is only 24 years old, the Buffalo Sabres are currently even still in this rebuild, and they're going to want young talent, even though Kyle Connor is still young and technically fits the window of being in a prime spot in like 3 to 4 years if you're Buffalo on trying to compete. But they can't underestimate the fact that having a guy that's 24 being swapped for another 24-year-old when they're in a rebuild isn't ideal for most teams at times. So that's something that makes this trade a little bit, they have to have some pieces going the other way. The Jets would need to really accept the fact that they're going to have to move on from some prospects. And from the Jets' standpoint, why would you want to even trade Kyle Connor? Kyle Connor, in my opinion, he has failed to show up a ton of times where it's mattered. Yeah, he was able to score that huge goal for triple overtime to get us to the next round, but when you look at Kyle Connor in that second round after the first game, and even during that first game, almost invisible that entire second round against the Montreal Canadiens. Now, I know what you're thinking, Jake, almost the entire team was, but the fact, and I don't disagree with you there, but the fact is, nonetheless, Kyle Connor is supposed to be an amazing top-tier talent when it comes to scoring and being an offensive threat, and the guy was completely invisible. Personally, I think if we're looking at just pure goal scoring, the Jets should have invested in Laine over Kyle Connor, because at least Laine can play, I feel like, and score throughout the lineup at times when he's hot. And Kyle Connor really has only ever had success with Mark Scheifele. But when you look at Patrick Laine, Stastny, Little, Scheifele at times, he's been able to have success with different centers. Even though success at different times, I still think that was the better option. But you look at this team defensively, how bad they are already. Kyle Connor is a huge defensive liability. So I don't think having Kyle Connor would be a benefit for this team trying to improve their defense. If anything, he really makes them worse when he's on the ice defensively, when he's not being offensive, because he doesn't really drive the play either. He's just a finisher. So a guy like him isn't, the most beneficial guy to have constantly on the ice for 5-on-5, other than when he's scoring at a really high clip. The other thing is right now is why trade Kyle Connor? PLD has been a failed experiment so far. I know what you could be saying, injury campaign, blah, 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 and all this stuff, and that makes perfect sense. Nonetheless, I still think that when you look at how much time he had to kind of get things going, especially into the playoffs, he failed to get any momentum, and he really looked kind of the worst hockey he's ever played in a long time in that second round. So if he continues to play like that potentially even at the start of next year, I say that experiment has failed with him at that second line center spot. You got to find a way to move on and strengthen that second line center, because if Perfetti is not going to be the answer immediately, and even then as a center, he'll probably won't be as good as he would be as a winger potentially as a rookie. We don't know how the future is going to look, but let's be real, ladies and gentlemen. So I think it could be important if PLD fails to go out and get a very valuable center so you can bolster that top six once again. And why I think it makes sense for both clubs is that although Kyle Connor isn't a franchise player, I think that when you look at where Buffalo will be currently in a rebuild, getting a guy like Kyle Connor can be, decent for the fans, because he's going to be a guy that makes an immediate impact now, regardless of that being huge success. Hopefully Buffalo can be on the upswing next year and be a bit more, effective, but they still have Jeff Skinner, who could potentially have a bounce back year eventually. So they have still guys that can play good, and bringing Kyle Connor into that mix is still just going to make them play good down the line, because they're going to have, immediate skill, and then they're going to have prospects and whatnot. So it just provides the fans with a little bit of this grace period where they have a guy that's skilled and can get hopeful for the future. So if you're oh my god, excuse me, I always stutter on these guys' names, the Pagulas, you're going to want to appease these fans in some way after losing Eichel and pissing him off. So bringing in Kyle Connor, another all-star, it can make sense from their standpoint. No matter what happens, you're going to lose this trade at Buffalo if you are trading Eichel, no matter who you get back. So I think you have to accept the fact that bringing a guy like Kyle Connor in for Jack Eichel, although they're not even close to the same player, you're bringing in a guy that will make an immediate impact for your club, regardless of you having longevity with that success of his impact, but you'll at least be a guy that can show up for you and you can have some faith in, a guy that you could buy potentially his jersey of, not something you're going to have to wait 3 years down the line for. In conclusion, I think that the best offer that I think any of these teams can make when it comes to Winnipeg and Buffalo would go something along the lines of this. Winnipeg would be receiving Jack Eichel. Going to Buffalo would be Winnipeg Jets forward Kyle Connor, prospect Christian Vesalainen, defenseman Sami Nikiu, this year's first-round pick in the 2021 NHL draft, which is 17th overall, and potentially a guy like Cole Perfetti, or maybe even another prospect like a Declan Chisholm or something along the lines of that. It depends, but I think right there it makes sense. You get Vesalainen, who's a very interesting prospect, who is definitely NHL ready, who could have success, you never know. And with Nikiu, he's more of a throw-in. You don't know what you're getting with him at the NHL level, but if you're Buffalo, you don't really expect to have any success. You might as well throw the guy out, see what can happen, give him a chance to play at the NHL consistently, which is something he's never had the opportunity to do with the Winnipeg Jets. He's played at every level consistently at the A in Finland and whatnot, but when it comes to the NHL, he's barely played played consistently in his career. So give him a shot, give him a starting shot, and just give him to see what happens with him. If his development takes off, you get a good defenseman who the Jets are just wasting in the press box for the next year, and they will. Because don't kid yourself, Sammy Nikiu didn't even play this year over Logan Stanley, and if you're thinking, oh, the whole AHL Rookie of the Year, Defense of the Year doesn't matter because Paul Maurice doesn't like the way they play, he doesn't fit the scheme very well at all. So I don't think Sammy Nikiu will ever become a starter with the Jets. He's going to be more like Nick Patan and waste away in the press box. So at this point, move him out for a value because you're just not going to use him. So I think that this trade, although there could be some other moving parts being involved as well, maybe you pull out Vesalainen and you have to insert a Perfetti. It depends on what it takes and what your Buffalo is. But I think that the fact is that the Jets theoretically could make a pretty damn good offer to the Buffalo Sabres if Cheveldayoff and Shipman choose to go in this direction. Now, will they? Who the hell knows? This is completely hypothetical, and I have no idea what will happen because I cannot predict the future. And if for some godforsaken way that I do predict this and it happens, then I should literally have 1 billion subscribers because I am basically Jesus. And with all that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know all your thoughts about my theories on this trade and how I think it could happen. If you think I'm an idiot, if you think that it's possible, if you'd like to see it happen, if you're Buffalo, tell me how you feel about the whole Eichel situation. What would be your dream package coming back for Eichel? I know it's not going to be really a win for you guys regardless because Eichel is Eichel and he's a franchise talent and it sucks to have him wanting out already. But the fact is, let me know your thoughts on your whole situation. I'd love to hear it coming from the Buffalo fan base and their perspective a little bit more. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed. We love all channels here, so make sure to subscribe regardless of the team that you root for. Peace, love, and positivity to all you beautiful people out there regardless to where you are in the world, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a good rest of your day, and bye-bye.